Okay, our next speaker for tonight is the Vice President of BD at StabilityAI. They're one of the leading open source generative AI companies in the world, and I'm very excited to introduce Scott. Can we give him a round of applause?
Thanks. Hi everyone, great to be here. In this session I'm going to talk to you about open models and decentralized datasets and effectively why they're important, and talk to you a little bit about what stability is, what we've achieved to date, and how we're going to move forward, and also, help support Web3 and crypto ecosystem. What is Stability's mission? I think this is, the most important point. Stability's mission is activating humanity's potential through generative AI. Open models in every modality for everyone, everywhere. And when I say potential, how do we make sure that putting our models and putting AI models in general in the hands of as many people as possible really elevates humanity's intelligence, and doing that, in a fair way where everyone levels up at the same pace. Open models beat closed models. That's a simple fact. There's unstoppable innovation that happens from, open models versus proprietary models. Having community participation in open models, training, and the data sets that they're trained on effectively outpaces closed proprietary models. And then the last point is everywhere and everybody having access to this technology. There's a way of actually having the ability to have more like smaller parameter models that are culturally and country relevant, i.e. every single person, every single country should have ownership of their own country's intelligence and historical intelligence. So Stability, we've won various awards. Our stable audio model, which allows you to create generative songs, which is pretty great, now does like 3-minute long length in songs. That won the Times Best Innovation Awards, nominated Times Best Innovation Award, and then multiple other awards. What we've done in regards to statistics and the amount of models that we have. So we're already, liked and downloaded globally. We already have like 139 million downloads of our various models just on Hugging Face alone. And looking across like various platforms and variant models that have been effectively fine-tuned and generated from those core models, that's above like 300 million just on Hugging Face. When we first launched, we were able to generate over 50,000 GitHub stars in the first 150 days, which outpaces Bitcoin and Ethereum combined, which were already very large repos. And our community is now over 315,000 people just on Discord alone, where they're interacting, understanding the models, and I'd say like half of those are active on a daily basis. We now have models across every major modality, and that started with Stable Diffusion. That's now we're now about to launch Stable Diffusion 3, which is arguably and has been cited as a better model than DALL-E 3 and Midjourney and Google's latest image model. And we have variants of that image model, have a Japanese image model. So you imagine, you type in, generate me a lady walking down a city street, and it will natively and instinctively generate a Japanese lady in Japanese garment walking down Tokyo, for example. You have to specify it. And then our language models, we effectively have those running now on like edge devices. So I actually have our latest language model, Zephyr, running on my mobile phone. So you imagine now you have a system where you don't even have to rely on like heavy GPU capacity. You can literally run these like without Wi-Fi, without internet. Stable code is like really interesting. I think you look at like layer 1s, layer 2s, and just like protocol infrastructure, which is really around how do you, incentivize usage and utility. Getting like that developer mindshare is like really, really important. The same for us, the same for, other developer ecosystems. And with stable code, you can, sort of enable people to start developing quite basic applications now, but it's only going to progress and get more complex. And like an interesting statistic is that like half of GitHub's repo now is like AI code generated, which is like absolutely incredible over such a short space of time. We also have like stable 3D, which is text to 3D models. You think about like gaming, vector assets, or the generation there. And stable video, which is our latest, like one of our latest models, which allows you, to do quite complex like video sequencing, which I'll show you a bit later. I'm going to play you a little video, which just gives some like visual perspective on what Stable Diffusion XL, which is the image model just before Stable Diffusion 3, and some of the capabilities behind that. So yeah, you can generate like pretty pictures with Stable Diffusion. And it's getting better. So effectively, latest model is actual like near perfect text generation as well. So you imagine, generate me a person wearing a blue t-shirt saying, I love crypto, and it will literally generate it to a high level of detail with like very little prompt engineering. STXL Turbo, this is like an example of a model which effectively we trained it to go from like 50 steps down to 1 step. And it's really interesting because it's like, with image generation, you type in a prompt or a sequence of tokens and then it generates you an image, but there's a wait time there. And it's like, okay, that wasn't quite right, or it's only given me 4 images. They're still not perfect. Naturally, maybe I wanted, like a blue hat on a cap versus a black one. And with Turbo, you basically now have, real-time generation and inference. So, it really like changes the way that you sort of interact as a creator with these generative models. Yeah. So stable video is like really interesting. Sora model has been getting a lot of showcasing like on Twitter and things. What's interesting there is, they're being quite selective on like the videos that they're generating and showing, which is, I guess, the right way to go about. But effectively, this is still like a closed model, right? What if you wanted to effectively take a video model and implement it into your own platform, or create more sophisticated workflows with that video model, or create a competitor and better alternative to like Adobe Premiere? This is an example of like literally someone taking Stable Diffusion video, which has like motion and camera angle, panning in and out, all of these different capabilities, and has sequenced individual snippets of video that were purely generated through text, and then has used AI to basically sequence them together. And the outputs is
What
like
do you
this.
fear? The storm? Or the calm before?
So like applicational uses, this is Ahmad, our founder. You can do like quite interesting like in-painting, basically take an image, overlay that with a new generated component of that image and specify like where you want to generate that new image. This is something I just did on the plane, like flying over, which is, generate an image and then effectively in paint around the area that you want to generate that overlay, type in like, generate me Donald Trump, and it will like use AI to really like accurately in paint it into that existing image. Adding more depth to images, just make it like super easy to take, the outline of an existing image and overlay it with a new one. Upscaling is very interesting from like a storage perspective. So this is something that came out of AI tooling, which is you take a low resolution image and you basically upscale it to a high resolution image. So you imagine low resolution images are much smaller in data storage costs, and then you're able to basically like upload it in real time. Really interesting for like gaming and like more sophisticated graphics on mobile devices. And then advanced upscaling is kind of an iteration on that, where you can take a very low resolution image and ask it to, generate you something entirely new, and it will take the same confounds of that existing like N64, 007 character and actually generate you a new high resolution character. We have, fine tuning as a service within Stability, but actually what's most interesting here is the community has basically taken the image models and created all these different LoRa's that you can download, and specify for your own, for your own outcome. So I want to, generate me a character in this style or another, and then you can literally, generate variants of that. And then more controllability around different LoRa's as well. So you can really specify, what you want within those. This is something that's quite applicable to NFTs. You can generate like one NFT character, for example, and you can create, like 1,000 variants of that NFT, and then pick which ones you want and have specific attributes tied to that NFT, and use machine learning to basically learn from like what customers want and all these other things. And then basically taking the same image and then changing different textures and styles from that image. Concepting, really interesting for like real world environments, etc. Can now do in real time concepting in scenes. We work with like multiple gaming companies. They're doing like real-time asset generation for like metaverses and things like that with their own data libraries or image libraries. And then going back to what I was saying, about code, everyone can become a developer now. We train like stable code 3 billion parameter model, which is effectively trained on like 18 programming languages, and you can build like quite complex applications with it now. This is really an example of how the community is taking some of our models and allowing them to run it on like lower spec hardware. So we're not talking like a language model here. We're talking like a full-on image model that is running on 12 gigabytes of RAM and effectively, is getting like the resolution of like 1280 out of it, which is like, you can see the quality is pretty great. That requires like no internet, nothing.
Rodney here. Very exciting moment in, I would say, the history of technology, the history of artificial intelligence. That is the release of Stable Diffusion.
Stable Diffusion.
Stable Diffusion.
Stable Diffusion.
Stable Diffusion.
So Stable Diffusion, I think, is going to really shake up the AI game.
It's an explosion of creativity, collaboration, and open improvement. The images it creates are stunning.
I'll just explain real quick. Hey, you got this big model, you can type in anything, and you get a picture, and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna type my name in, and like nothing comes up.
I trained the thing for a week and a half on it looking like me. On my drive down, this guy figured out how to do it in 15 minutes.
ControlNet.
Power up ControlNet.
So yeah, that's an example of, effectively how the community has taken these models and like literally generated entirely new products and services from them. Okay, so that's all well and good. We have, core models across every major modality, but like, what is next? And actually, like, what's interesting about Stability is we actually started out as like a DAO to build a DAO of DAOs. We're like actually a crypto native company. A lot of our investors are like Web3 investment firms. So this is really going back to our roots. Like the reason we didn't do a DAO then is because like the token economics and like technology really wasn't there. But now, I think the ability to actually have these like core models as like, basic primitives that you basically build on top of is like a really interesting concept. So, what we're seeing now is, accelerating the rate of innovation, democratizing AI technology. This is the beginning of a new intelligence revolution, just like we had the digital revolution. And we believe that every country needs to own their society's intelligence and their society's history. The need for like open, transparent, and fairly accessible systems for AI technology, putting it in the hands of the people that globally need it the most, and like elevating humanity by doing that at an equal pace of change. That's really where we're going to focus now. So, our focus now is really own your data as individuals, own your model, and own your own intelligence. Like we're going to move to a phase of like effectively everyone will be walking around with their own AIs on their smartphone devices. It's going to be learning from you. It's going to be understanding you. When you say, what is a cup? It's going to know that you're talking about a teacup because I'm British versus like cup my hands versus World Cup. This is all going to become possible. So the next move of this is, how do we democratize open source AI and how do we put it in the hands of the people? Like we are going to continue to train like cutting edge AI models. We're going to focus on like using open data sets, which has community collaboration into them. People have access to data and they understand their own, like cultural data far better than, OpenAI, for example. And national model frameworks. So every single nation should have their own effectively country model. Computer availability, making sure that we can continue to fund academic research. We gave about 20 million in 100 hours for academia last year, and then we continue to do the same. And what's really interesting is, data is the new oil. So effectively, the outputs and knowledge retrieval from these AI models are only as good as the data they were trained on. And that's really like a system where you can have crypto and a community which is like participating within these data sets, pushing out these like national models through like a governance structure and incentive framework. The sort of bounds of that is like limitless. We've already started this. So we already have Japanese language and image models, started training a Spanish language model and an Arabic language model. And yeah, so Stability's core models and open framework will serve as the bridge between Web3 and AI, putting AI models in the hands of 4 billion people. And that's our mission.